Hey friends, thank you so much for joining for another amazing episode. But before we get started, I have a quick announcement, and I'm going to make it quick, I promise. Now, remember we're talking about the contest. It starts this week for 10 weeks leading up to my 100th episode. Also, we're looking for 10,000 downloads, and not to mention the Olympics is right at the end of our contest. So here's the thing. This is how you can win on a weekly basis. What I'm asking is everybody to go subscribe, give us a 5-star, give us a review, screenshot me and tag me on Instagram at Sylvie_cyclist, and you will go in to win that week. I will be going on live. Well, I'll be making the announcement Friday on my coaching episode as to who wins the prize. So please share this with your friends. Go in and put a great comment and put your notifications on. You don't want to miss out your opportunity to win. And I'm going to have an overall prize for everybody who subscribes from now until the end of the contest. Thanks a lot, guys. And I so appreciate you. Have an amazing day and enjoy the episode.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Secrets in the Saddle, All Things Cycling podcast with your host, Sylvie and this amazing friend, cycling fellowship, and Angella Goran. And here's the thing, guys, that we have known each other for 15 years. And this little background, how I got to know Angela, or how we got to know each other 16 years ago. So I'm thinking it's about 2005, where I had a spinning studio called Cycle Fit in Ottawa on Main Street. And I don't know how she found me, but she came in and I hired her as a spin instructor. And that's how our story started. So she moved to Ottawa from Vancouver, and we're going to go into her story in a couple of minutes because I have other things I have to tell you guys about before we dive right into Angela and her background. But yeah, I think she finished university. She came to Ottawa from Vancouver. She found me. I gave her a job, and that's how we started. So here's a little background on Angela, and we're going to touch on these things in the interview. It's going to be super exciting because Angela's got some pretty cool stuff on the go. All right, so here it goes. Angella Goran is a well-rounded athletic woman who devotes her time in areas of business, sport, and community, for sure. She's a serial entrepreneur, mentor, and advocate for women in technology and advancing girls and women in sport. Woo! We're on the same page. Yeah, cycling. Whoop, whoop. As a founder of Tapango, I was like, Tapango. Tapango Technologies, a virtual neobank specializing in innovative and disruptive FinTech, and InsureTech niche markets. She and her team are set to launch this summer. So we're going to get into that, but we got more. Okay, with over 20 years spent between amateur and elite level of athletics and sports, of rowing, so that's where it starts, then triathlon, and currently cycling. This is a formula for her madness in sport, and this is a passion. That's why I love her so much. Her current announcement is that she will be going after the UCI 1Hr Women's Indoor Cycling World Record attempt, rescheduled for September. So we're going to talk about this too. Yeah. With this record attempt, the opportunity has been presented to create a guaranteed independent film. So we're going to talk about this. Thanks to Amazon Prime on the purpose of her attempt supporting girls and women in sport. Stay tuned for more of the filming of Perfect or Podium. Ooh, I like it. Breaking records and barriers for girls and women in sport. Welcome, Angela. Oh my gosh, where should we start?
No, thank you so much for having me, Sylvie. This is a really great pleasure. It's so nice to reconnect, obviously in a virtual sense, as we are still in this majority lockdown, but here we are.
I know, like it's funny because I'm sure we just watch each other like on social media and like, oh, what's Angela doing? And I just realized that she's not too far from me. No, one of these days I'll be able to do a live interview, which I used to, and that was super fun. But here, so we're going to jump into Angela's story. And I always like to ask everybody, how did they find themselves in the sport of cycling? Because a lot of people come from different backgrounds. Like she even started from rowing. So we're going to hear all about it. How'd you get started? How'd you transition to cycling? I know you're spinning from my studio.
This is true. Yeah, absolutely. Love. Been a spinner for, I laugh now looking back, and thanks for the job back in the day. It was awesome. So yeah, I grew up obviously on the west coast of Canada. So you referenced Vancouver. Vancouver Island was home. And I went to the University of Victoria. So yeah, I was fortunate to obviously love sport and got into the sport of rowing in my latter years of high school. And then that pushed me into the university program at the University of Victoria. Of course, Elk Lake, beautiful spot, Victoria. It is the home for Canadian women's and men's national team. So I did my stint there, but it's interesting because Victoria is also that hub for a lot of other national sports. So at the time, Pacific Sports, Sylvie, was the governing body that oversaw like rowing, triathlon, cycling, field hockey, rugby, swimming. I think I mentioned. Anyways, yeah, there was like 7 or 8 different sports. So I ended up, like, no joke. Obviously, when we go to university, everybody's poor. Like you don't have a lot of money, so you're living with a lot of people in the house. And I remember oftentimes if I didn't get room in the car to go to Elk Lake, I'd have to book it on a bike. So, I'd get on my bike and I'd haul it to Elk Lake to actually then get my workout in. And so the joke always was that I was just as good a cyclist as I was a rower. And I guess like at the end of the day, I ended up, and I look back now and I know that he's passed. But Stephen, he was a professor at the University of Victoria, and he notably would see me running and biking and rowing, and he just became he was a huge prof that loved sports. Long and the short, he said, you need to come out and do one of the Tuesday night time trials or the Thursday night crits locally in Victoria. They had kind of like this, like what we do in Ottawa with OBB. And I know you do some amazing women's events for time trialing. So same thing. I was like, sure, like, why not? I was kind of at the stage 2003, still training on the national team for rowing. And Stephen gave me a bike. I didn't really have like a road bike. I had like a clunky mountain bike that I was commuting on. And I went out and did a couple of the Tuesday night and Thursday night time trials, and I did really well. Like I had a ton of fun. There wasn't a lot of women, that's for sure, in the early days, kind of early 2000s. But I guess luck, and we had this outdoor beautiful velodrome in Juan de Fuca that was just built from the Commonwealth Games. And I ended up going out and starting to train on this cement-based velodrome with Stephen, and got on to the Victoria Cycling Club. And again, thanking so many people, like Oak Bay Bikes picked me up and said, we think you got some potential, kid, or young lady at the time. And I joined OBB as my first kind of, I guess, Cat 4 novice riding. And I won that season going back to like 2005, right before I moved to Ottawa. The Bastion Street Criterium. And I did the big BC Super Week and did also exceptionally well there with some placements. And the kind of rest is history. I've always loved biking, but I look back now and I remember the start line, and you'll love this. Like, I remember the start line in Vancouver, and there was like Alison Sador, and there was Mandy Portra, and there was like Lynn Bissett, like all these incredible women, right? And I was like this rookie, right? Like I just remember now, like I look back and I'm so respectful and appreciative, because some of those women were out there blocking and showing me the ropes, and obviously teaching me a lesson that, going at the front of the pack and making these stupid sprint moves. They were all laughing probably, because now I'm like, what's that moron doing? Like freaking, we're all back here having a conversation and they're out trying, let's pick it up, girls, right? Like they probably all were looking just like, let's get her tired. So now I don't know, I look back and I love it because the sport obviously has so much community effect and there's an art and a skill to it. But those are my early days. I look back now, the one regret I have is I should have stuck to it and raced pro. At that time, and you'd know this, there wasn't a lot of professional women for women's cycling, especially paid. So I had a lot of student debt to pay back. And at that time I had a great job offer to move to Ottawa. That was going to start in the latter part of the summer. So at that stage, yeah, I kind of took the job opportunity and didn't really see the possibility of being a professional athlete paid. That was going to pay off some debt. So coming from a single family, I, did what I think any young daughter would do. I said, Mom, I'm going to take the job and I'm going to be okay. And I came to Ottawa and how I got to know people was joining, a great position like at your awesome company and getting to meet people in the community aside from government employees. That kind of started me, but I think Ottawa's been great. Like I came here and obviously with the cycling community, I just fell in love with meeting people. Triathlon was really big. I think for me, I right away just started to join, whether it was the cycling studio to the, running room events. And next thing I know is people were like, oh, can you swim? So I kind of, tied everything together. I know I kind of joke, but long of the short, yeah, kind of had the fun stints, did all that, but cycling's always been my passion. I love cycling. I think I get a high every single time, especially this time of year after a full season of kind of being on the trainer. For people that are listening or watching, they'll probably know exactly what I mean. Like you always feel like a kid going back to being 5 years old and that first experience of the trainer wheels coming off. Like when I'm in Gatineau Park and that first descent down Blacks, it's like you get those butterflies that come and you just want to go faster and like get as aero as you can. Obviously we can't do the George, as I call it, anymore legally.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. But for me, I just really enjoy cycling, and it's been such a pleasure now to meet so many awesome, incredible people in the sport. And I think, and to be there to see how many young girls are getting into it and now the opportunities. Like, I think, shout out to some of the gals like Leah Kirkman, who I know is racing on, oh my gosh, Sunweb right now, and paving the way. Like, I think the conversations now started to talk about women's equal pay and opportunities, and it's not just in cycling. So, I think that's the best thing possible. And for me, like cycling's a great form of exercise. Being 42, I look at this and go, wow, like I've had cycling in I know it's nothing. I feel young at heart. I don't even care about age, but I look at it's such a great sport because I can go out riding with people that can kick my butt most days that are also in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, even some days, and I love it. I think that it's a great sport. I've had some of my best memories in my life by being on the bike. One of them is with my mom in Europe. She retired when she was 68 and she wanted to bike Europe from all over. Like, she spent 3 months on a bike with panniers, and I joined her in Italy. And we had a full month of cycling together with one of my now actually investors. And they struck up such a great friendship, and still over glasses of wine, it's a memory that we'll look back on for life. So I look back and go, wow, like cycling's pretty freaking cool. And I hope that, and it will stay in my life for the rest of my life. So.
Well, of course, where would it go? Like, seriously.
I know. I'm like, I feel more natural on two wheels than I do in a pair of running shoes. So it's kind of, when you say those days, and it's I think there's hard days like anything in sport, right? So I think when you start to look at numbers, and especially now training for a world-class event again, it's definitely taught me how to appreciate the sport and the discipline in a different way. But yeah, anyways, it's so great. I love it. So that's all I can say is everybody that's listening and watching should, if you don't have a bike or you're not on your bike at least a few times a week, put a little bit more effort and energy to get on it, because it really gets you, and it's so healthy for you at the end of the day too.
Yeah, I'm sure no matter where you are, you can always find a club or a meetup group. Lots of meetup groups these days of people just getting together and riding. I saw a lot of that last summer with our cycling club and just out hearing, other groups. Like it was just like an explosion of people on the bike path. Or
It's
sorry,
crazy.
it's a multi-purpose path. We have to remember that. And yeah, so I mean, but that provides a whole different slew of interesting concerns. but yeah, I know, seriously. Great, like it's not a speedway, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
All right, we've got some really cool things that we want to talk about and showcase. So the first thing, there's my husband. He went out to Tim.
Oh, did he? Nice. You got coffee or tea? Oh, look at that. Lucky you. Hey, where's mine? You can come over. I'll give you my address. Oh, wait, you have. Here, there's a healthy water.
You over here.
Sweet.
So you're a serial entrepreneur. So ever since I've known you, ever since I've known you, you've been doing something. You've
Pretty
been
much.
like, you've been riding all these bikes, you're launching a business, you're over here, you're over there, and I'm just like, what the fuck is she doing? And I'm just like, wow, what's Angela up to now? Now, I brought up one of your past businesses that I was familiar with because that was one that you were launching, and that was probably 10 years ago, maybe more.
2008, 2009.
Yeah, so like 10 years ago. And that was Sock Jocks, and that was kind of new on the horizon. It was bamboo material, socks, and bamboo clothing was just up and coming. And I just wanted to touch base. You mentioned that it's been handed off because that was a really cool, nice sock.
Thank you. Well, and the funny thing is I always kind of, and anybody that's an entrepreneur, and I know you are yourself, so I think everybody kind of sees different opportunities, and I learned a lot. Sock Jock was an incredible company, and it definitely still has a soft spot in my heart, and I'm really hopeful that the students that I've passed it on to at the University of Ottawa are going to build it up to be what it could have been and should have been. I think everybody, when you realize within company, you have to put, it's a lot of energy and effort, especially retail, when you're dealing with manufacturing. And I think I look back now and I was on the cusp of something, because you're right, bamboo was this new kind of, wow, like this is a great product. Is it sustainable? Honestly, I loved it so much, but and then we had the school programs connected, because it really was, we built out these socks in the schools. It was to raise money and awareness, like put your best foot forward. We donated sock sale funding to the community arts, sports, and academics, right? Me Casa, Sue Casa model. And My House is Your House. I look back, I love it. Like our curriculum is fantastic. And I'm pretty sure these students are going to do a great job of paving the way forward. Because really, for me, that business was about opportunities for youth to learn from an everyday product that doesn't cost a lot of money for a family. It's healthier than cookies or chocolate bars, right? And it's about getting your feet going, like in life. Like it was to learn about wealth management and like the basic financial literacy. So it was to take kind of the underlying idea of like learning. And for me, that's why I've got into obviously the bigger picture of, I know what we're going to talk about, but I think it was at that stage where I started to see other companies come out, like Bombas, like these two amazing entrepreneurs. Bombas Socks, Bombas is stands for Bumblebee. They do a lot of donations to homeless shelters, and it was kind of like the revolution of awesome socks. Like I go back to Shopify days, early days. Wish I had invested, but I was talking to their team about.
For you.
I know, I wish. I was talking to them about subscription, or like what was, like the word subscription didn't even exist. I had parents saying, hey, like if I could buy a pair of socks from you every month for the next 12 months and they're a different design, I would sign up. And nobody even knew like how to do that. So it was kind of interesting. Like I was almost like a year or two shy of where I should have been with the launch. So almost like before my time. Because then all of a sudden,
Right.
everybody wanted to have fun-loving, funky socks, right? And the software was
Yeah.
there. But at that stage, I had already developed these programs and we built a lot. And I think the resources, you know, I didn't go and raise any money for Sock Jock. It was all my own sweat equity and lots of things that was fun to learn. So I love where it went. I love where it grew. I had an incredible young, talented staff. I still have actually one of my staff from Sock Jock with me. With my new company, she came over. So she's been with me for a very long time. And we've taken all of the DNA, like what I say is like the fabric of DNA from there was giving back, learning about financial literacy. And I've taken that and I've put it into an even bigger project. Again, knowing that it was going to be a very hot market where we were going to start to see financial services technology take off, and be more mobile and contactless. And that's where, you know, I learned a lot from Sock Jock, and I've taken all of that and I've transferred that knowledge. And now we're set to be at the right time in the market, and go with something even bigger. So it's pretty cool.
Well, of course, everything you do is, you know, it's a baseline or a foundation for moving forward. And I just feel like that too, you know, whatever you do, you're just learning, and it's going to click and it's going to provide to be great information for the future down the road when you can, you know, really apply, like you said. So let's talk about what you're doing right now, because I think the last time we sat and had coffee, you were working on this.
Yeah.
And I want to like about 2 years ago. It was a while.
It's been a while. And I always laugh, like nothing happens overnight, especially in technology for anybody that has founded a company that has tech. It always seems like when it goes out or there's an IPO announcement, right, a public offering, it's like, oh my God, where did this company come from? And I now know exactly what some of these founders have done and sacrificed to get to where they are. But yeah, 2015, you know, like I kind of came back from that trip in Europe, with my first investor and a close contact who had just recently retired from Deloitte as a partner. We were on our bikes in Europe, and at that stage, I was thinking about the next move, and I had come up with this idea to better protect families and be able to make it affordable to live an active lifestyle. So it was this combination of better insurance products for people that were active, but at the same time combining that with financial services so they could get better offerings and save money from the spend they do in that healthy living marketplace. So at that stage, like I didn't really know I would be combining both an insurance technology and a financial services technology company, but that's what we've done over 5 years. So it started with that idea, like any entrepreneur does. I had a pain point after biking across Canada and being over in Europe and listening to people like yourself. It's like, look, I've got a bike that's worth as much as a car, and I spend a lot of money in the healthy living space, and I'd like to be able to make it more affordable, especially from families, right? Like people that have lots of kids and they're looking at their budgeting and their tools, and you know, the light bulb kind of went off. I said, well, why is that not more accessible? And why are we not creating that collection of people, right? Like banks charge us a lot of money. Like when you look at your monthly statements, they take X amount every single month for your deposits. They charge you when you transaction, and it's your money. Like you're putting that money in there. So it's like, well, why are you taking the money I'm giving you? Like, yeah, maybe a little bit for holding it, but for me, it was just a really interesting kind of question. And I started to be a little bit smarter than I was in my early Sock Jock days. And I surrounded myself with people that were more knowledgeable in the area. And I said, hey, I have an idea, and I think you guys could help me formulate it and actually tell me if I'm nuts or not. Like, would this work? And it honestly, Sylvie, was these early days of starting to see the now unicorn companies that we know of, like Robinhood, that obviously had a huge game day market shift of about 8 to 12 weeks ago. The Revoluts that have come in from the UK to Canada and moved out, like they're known as challenger banks or neobanks. And that's what I got into. I didn't realize that's what I was gonna push, but you know, as I started to understand through the leaders and the mentors I was bringing on board to help me structure this program that's called Athletica Rewards, Athletica Protect. It is our first flagship program. because we have other vertical offerings. And I just like at that stage, I never realized, wow, I'm getting into financial technology and insurance technology. I just kind of wanted to create, right? Like I just being natural, I was like, I want to solve the problem I'm having and people I know are having, and what can we do about it? So it's exciting now in the quickest ways to kind of, look at it and say, wow, we're going to be the 6th neobank in Canada as of the summer. So we're a fully digital cloud-based financial service company. So everything you think about with banking, that's traditional. What we do is we work with a bank sponsor and we allow we work on the debit card rail through a private card and an e-wallet. So you'd have a MasterCard or a Visa card, debit card, and you can deposit, you can link your existing bank accounts and or other credit cards. But what makes us unique is the fact that there's no transaction fees, there's no overhead costs, there's no travel expenses. You don't have to worry about the card being cut or shut down when you're traveling. You can do open exchange, so it's a lot easier to go, let's say, from Canada to the US, and right away your bank account's now in US dollars. There's no cost to that. It's an open exchange. So those are kind of some of the cool features. But what makes us different is we've connected a merchant marketplace. So we've gone out and collectively worked with brands in the sport and the healthy living space, realizing it costs them a lot of money to try to acquire customers like you and I. And we said, well, look, like we don't know it. We know it's not hard to get Sylvie or Angela to buy bike stuff. They love cycling. So let's give them some rewards or some cash back for being loyal customers to us. So that's what Athletica does, is what we've done is created this closed loop community of really cool brands that are niche to that vertical. And we've said, look, we're not going to charge you like Facebook or Google to come into our market. What we want is when a customer is a consumer of one of your products or services, is to give them some cash back. And then that cash back they can use within that ecosystem. So that's what, that's the simplest way to explain how our program works. And then the algorithm, obviously like technology, it grows. So we can start to understand, Sylvie, who you are, where we could help you with better managing your finances or your wealth. Some new companies that have come into the marketplace that you might be interested in, not like, okay, I'm not interested in that. Like I don't do ice picking or snowshoe fishing, and why would you target me with those? Or like, I just bought a purse. I don't need to be targeted with another purse. Like kind of like, for us, it's really about being smart. I know. But yeah, exactly. Like it's honestly, like, I love it. And I think too, the insurance side, from an athlete perspective, I know like there's been a pain point for a lot of people when it comes to gear and travel and access, especially for people that are not Canada. We're pretty good, but I really wanted to create that on-demand feel. So it's like, if I'm traveling and I want to rent a bike that's similar to mine in, let's say, California, I don't have to pay $300 to fly my bike there. I can get a bike shop, get the bike set up, but now I can get the insurance for myself when I'm out riding the bike if something does happen to either myself or that gear. Same thing to cover myself. So it's really bespoke insurance products, and it's up to the user. So it's not this kind of like push sale. It's more of a, hey, here's what we have to offer. We know that you have X amount of bikes in your garage or snowboards or gear. Here we go. Let's help you out. Right. So.
Yeah. So how many, okay. Now, if I were to decide to join this neobank,
yes,
because you said it's attached to my bank, so I'm with CIBC.
Perfect.
How does that work?
Cool. Yeah. So it's an integration. So we work with an API, and what we can do is we can connect with third-party banks as well as credit cards. So to offer, like with our program, when we launch this summer, there'll be a free version and a premium. Premium, you just get more cash back, and there's a little bit like early bird registrations and other offerings. But the freemium is great for people that want to kind of see, does this program work for me? And is it worth it for me to go to the premium, where it's roughly about $12 a month or $100 a year. So it's not expensive to go up. I really wanted to keep it affordable. But to answer your question, what it is it is a full-fledged bank account. So you can deposit and load that MasterCard, the Athletica MasterCard debit card with your own cash. But you can also link your existing credit cards and or bank accounts like Apple Pay or Samsung Pay. So we wanted to make it acceptable for people to kind of say, look, like, we don't want to force you to have to deposit money if you don't want to. If you just want to link your existing bank accounts and do the transactions that way, that's fine as well. So, because we noticed, like, obviously in a new technology space, trying to get people to technically bank with us is a big thing, right? It's kind of like going through that environment. Now, I definitely feel for a lot of families that have younger kids, this is going to be a great way for them to set up an accessible bank account for their child. Somebody like, especially a sporty family. And this is our first vertical. So as I was saying, like, Athletica is our flagship. Our second program that's going to launch soon after Athletica is called Alexandrite, and it's actually focused on supporting small business owners. So it's solely dedicated to the business founders. And then our third program and our last one that we'll be focusing on is on newcomers and immigrants to Canada, as well as students. So the youth card exchange. So really noticing, obviously, especially international students when they come in, or athletes, if you're traveling internationally and you're one team this year over in Europe and another team over in Australia, and then you're back to the US, like, try getting a bank account. You're where do you live? I don't have a physical address anymore, right? So that's where having an open style of banking really comes in handy. And then you're setting yourself up where you've got an established account. So yeah, that's, where we specialize.
That is really cool, because it's true. Like, think about a lot of athletes that do a lot of travel across, like, for competitions or events, I don't know, 70% of the year they're over, US,
Europe,
like Brazil, or Spain or whatever. Now, you said this would make it easier to transfer funds to, like, say, my sister in Florida. Like she wants me to, or whatever, I want to send her some money. So that would be easier, because I know that I can't do that right now.
Yeah, so this is you got it. That's a really good way to explain it. So
I get you money.
Yeah.
Send you mail.
I'm selling you, you're signed up. So yeah, when you think about it, what's really cool is we are going to be an established neobank in Canada and the US. So we work with a bank sponsor in Canada and the US for our licensing through the governing regulated bodies. Not to bore you on that side, but what that allows us to do is to do that, what they call in the world of finance is P2P, person to person transfer of money. And so obviously regulators always want to follow the flow, which is where blockchain technology, which is interesting, comes into play, especially with a lot of neobanks, because we want to make sure we incorporate that learning of where money goes and make sure it's not laundered. But yeah, the P2P. So what's really cool about all of our ecosystems, all of our verticals, is if you're a part of Athletica, for example, and your sister is, it's an easy direct transfer right away. It's also a really neat way for athletes to connect with the people that are part of the membership. So, go back to, like, being a junior athlete and say, maybe now I need $1,500 to buy a flight to go to Canadian championships that are on the other side of Canada right now. So what I could do as one of the Athletica ambassadors is post my story and let the Athletica membership community know this is what I'm doing. So I could see that post, and then I could reach out to you, Sylvie, and say, hey, like, I've got about 300 Athletica rewards dollars sitting in my account for my spend. Do you think we could get together and help this young athlete out? So instead of having to go all these routes and have to donate it to a direct fund, it actually can go right from your rewards wallet right to hers or his, and they can actually buy that flight. You can also do a gift card, because that's the other cool part. So some of our merchants are going to be Air Canada and United Airlines and all of the flights. So if that athlete's saying, well, I need a flight. Okay, well, let's get you the flight. Let's go buy together. Let's go and buy an Air Canada gift card. So because it's a payments company, we have the ability to do a lot of neat features to support the different ecosystems. And you can take that same athletic profile and go over to the small business owner. And one of our main focuses is women in business and female founders. Is now we can create that ecosystem to support women in business the same way. It's like, okay, well, let's take a small business. How much do we spend every single month to turn our lights on, our cell phone bills, hiring some staff, payroll. So if we can eliminate some of those or put some money back in the piggy bank for those small business owners and support them, fantastic. So it's the same kind of leverage when we look at all of the niche verticals that we've created within Tapango. Athletica and Alexandrite are really the same program. They've got a different vertical that they're addressing or a different audience. That's all.
Wow.
I know, 5 years in the making, here we go. And I'm really stoked because I did learn that I am the first female founder of a neobank in North America.
Oh, that's super cool. So I can imagine, like, this must have been a huge learning curve for you. Like, okay, like, how did you sit there and go, how do you learn all this?
I'm still learning. I won't lie, I'm still learning. Like,
things will always be changing, but like, that must have been, so did you work with people or did you do a lot of your own research? Like, how did you get so educated, I guess, on it? Because to me, I was like, this so far,
yeah, it's
because there's so many different moving
pieces. Well, that's a funny part. Like, how do you simplify talking about a digital bank? Like, even my partner and I, like, sometimes the dinner conversation, I'm like, don't worry about it. We don't need to talk. It's fine. And I think that
like, no, but
yeah, there's days, honestly, Sylvie, I look back, like, I still, like, I think as an entrepreneur, we're always learning, right? So
yeah,
I think at this stage, I'm not scared to ask. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I always say to anybody is, like, you know what, there's no right answer and there's no wrong answer. It's about not being in fear to come out and say, I don't know, and I need some support. So I think what's really comforting in the sense now is there's so much more support to support ideas and accelerate opportunities that are innovative. So, I think at this stage, I've definitely got some incredible people, and that's it. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the team. Like, I've got an incredible CFO who was the former CFO of MetLife. Him and his wife are the owners of the Maple Bat Corporation, Sambat, in town. And Arlene, I joke, Arlene runs the company, and she kind of kicked her husband out because, the husband-wife duo, you never want to work together. So Jim was kind of like, I'm bored and I'm really not ready to retire, although he retired when MetLife sold to the US after being 13 years there as a CFO. So I kind of scooped him up, perfect timing. He's an incredible, here's somebody who handled M&A, did a lot of financing. He worked on the investment side with the insurance realm. And then that kind of spiraled, right? Like, then you get the next person, and, been, I guess, fortunate enough where people have kind of listened to what I've had to say. And yeah, I really threw myself into learning about FinTech and neobanks. And I really love what's coming. I love the being about people and partnerships, which is everything of what I was doing at SoftJock, just on a grandeur scale. So I kind of looked at this and said, yeah, like, I want to be one of Canada's next unicorns. Like, I definitely, as a company, I want to see that we reach over $1 billion, and I hit that bell maybe one day in New York and in Toronto. But that we see that a lot of that money is also going back to our people and our partnerships, and that we're transparent for the first time, a real transparent open bank. And there's opportunity to do that. So might as well be up to it. And I think there's enough people now that are starting to kind of go, I think she's serious. So, and I laugh when I say that. I think they're saying, wow, she's really crazy, but she's willing to do it. So she's willing to do it, I'm going to follow.
That's right. Doing this long enough, I think this is a legit time.
Yeah, I think that's it. Like, if you can hang on, which, trust me, I'm fingers crossed. I'm doing my seed round right now, and this is a whole new world. So I'm raising technically in the world of FinTech, it's a small amount. We're raising $3 million Canadian. We opened it last week. We're now talking to some incredible funds. Some of them are Ottawa based and Canadian, lots obviously in the US, but I'm at a point where one of our major partners who's already been involved from the insurance realm, I'm very hopeful he comes on board because he's seen how long I've been at this, and he's been a part of it since almost day one. So it would make sense for him to kind of, open up the checkbook, as I say, and just come on board. We're ready to go. So it's cool.
Well, are you offering this as an opportunity for smaller investors? Like,
So
do you have different investment amounts that people can
come
invest?
in. Yeah. No, that's a good, so put it this way, we did a family and friends round, and that went really well in 2018. And then out of that, like now with our seed round, there's ways to, and I know you're quite a great businesswoman. So we do have the ways to structure, say, for example, if 10 people wanted to come together or 5 people and create the pool, like the 3 million Canadian, what we're hoping is people will come together with a minimum at least of 100,000 injected to a quarter million. So we're not having to like pool it like a crowd fund. But there's opportunity there. Like it really depends on the group. And for me, it's strategic. So I'm wanting to find people that are involved in sport, understand business, because that's like the next step is like we were talking about this collective, like the Women's Canadian Cycling Collection, right? That's the type of organization, like having people that are invested and go, wow, like you should be going here and talking there. That's how a business grows. It's finding the right people that I just don't want money at this stage. I want the right people to say, I want to be involved, and it's not just be invested. I want to be involved. So yeah, I'm super pumped. It's been a really neat, it's been a good time. So I think it's going to continue to kind of go that way, and excited for the next chapter and where we take off.
Because I think it's important to have people, because obviously they're going to use the product, share the product, and all that. And I 2 years ago, I invested in an AI company out of Phoenix.
No way. Cool. Yeah. We're gonna have to talk about that one. That's sweet.
I can connect you with the so it's a mentor of mine through one of the businesses that I have, and she put it out there, and it wasn't cheap, but I know that she's a multimillionaire, so I know that she's going to be working hard, just like you, to make it work, right? You have a lot invested in it, and you know what the funny thing is it started out as one thing, and it's kind of almost
pivoted
like a 180 to something else, and it's just picked up a lot of momentum. It's really cool to see, because I'm like, awesome. Retirement fund right there.
Honestly, like going in AI, and that's the, like with Tapango, like one of the neat things as you get in, and that's what's happened now, is you have to incorporate AI and BI technology, because, and with us, we put in blockchain because of the importance of open banking. So it's looking at so many more metrics for data, and AI is just smart learning. Like it's honestly like, it never existed, and now it's just offering so much more. And honestly, for people, like I think the day of privacy is obviously a big conversation. So verification, I'm very excited to kind of see where the next things move on, and where we grow, and the teams that are out there doing great things to kind of make a difference. That's for sure. That's the biggest thing, is all of these young kind of companies we're starting to be a combined disruptor, which is kind of point in fact of what's happening with the markets right now, right? There's enough people that are poking the bear, not the bull, and really starting to wake it. And I think that's kind of, it's an awakening concept, and lots of the banks and the insurance companies are starting to kind of go, okay, we got to start to listen. Like this is going to be an interesting next decade, to see where things kind of fall. But I'm excited to be a part of this. That's for sure.
Oh, for sure. It's just like Bitcoin. You know, they're like, oh, that was just a trend, but oh my gosh, wow. And the banks are starting to get into it, like offering it as part of their mutual fund. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, seriously? Like, so
it's crazy, like crypto, right? It's coin-based tokenization. Yeah, it's wild. So, and we'll be able to do all of that. So we have the ability to do tokenization, obviously, and especially talking to merchants, we can go in right off the get-go and say, are you interested to allow token exchange or crypto exchange through MasterCard and Visa, and PayPal are the main administrators now for crypto. So it's fascinating. Bitcoin paved the way for a lot of the Dodge coins, as I call it, to come out. But it's going to be a new era, and the regulators are obviously talking a lot as well. Like I think we're going to see a lot more governance. Like when the like OSFI is the official kind of administrator that oversees all of our fiat in Canada, and the CDIC, which is the insurer, and in the US, it's the FDIC. As soon as all these bodies globally start to say, we accept it, it's, you know, I think we'll start to see more country-based coins come out, which will change how Bitcoin, like Bitcoin's always going to have a value. Will it stay up where it is? Hard to say. It's still really hard for people to get all of the money they have out because it has to be in exchange for something. So that's the thing, right? Like you couldn't walk in right now, let's say if you had $100 million worth of Bitcoin and ask a bank to give you $100 million, what you'd have to do is try to find a way to exchange it. So that's what's happening is you have stadiums and companies like possibly like Boeing that will say, well, look, if you want to buy a plane with Bitcoin, we'll allow you to buy a plane.
Right. Well, I know
sure,
you can buy
So, and I'm pretty sure there's some people, I know a few young people that have done very well with Bitcoin. So
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just getting rolling, and I've been approached by a couple people joining like clubs,
like affiliate style stuff. Yeah.
Like, and you know, the funny thing, Angela, is that I bought some Bitcoin or some cryptocurrency like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Did you sit on it?
Yeah, I can't find the password. I know.
No.
Angela, it's in one of my agendas. And I have like a whole box. I'm going through them. I'm like, I wrote it down at the back and in the front. And I'm just like, because I know that if you don't have that sentence, then, but it wasn't a whole lot. Like, but it could be a whole lot right now.
Yeah, like I was just saying, like, never, yeah, you never say never, but that's it's funny, you're one in like a few thousand that did the same thing. I always joke, like there's a few companies now out there that are called like password protect. Like I now save everything on a lock key passcode because I'm like, with all of the scribble notes, I'm like, oh my God, you know, you wrote it down. I believe you, but it's like, how many journals do we have? I have like 1,000 of these things hanging out. Yeah. Come on.
I had the last 20 my agendas.
Yeah.
Like,
maybe it's meant to be because Bitcoin's going up. So maybe what was going to happen is like you would have found it when it was at 50,000 and now you're still looking for it and you're going to get it. You're going to find it on the day and it's just meant to be. And it's going to be like all of a sudden worth like 167,000 or something ridiculous. And it's like,
that much. I know. I'm like, because when I signed it up, he's like, you can't get it any other way. Like you have to have these numbers. Like you can't retrieve anything. Like, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Anyways, so I have that, and I'm like looking through each one of them. I'm like, geez, it's around this, 2018. So I'm like, so I have like it narrowed down, but I'm like, did I have another written like notebook agenda? Like, where is that? Anyway, well, we can talk about it forever. Let's go on to the next thing. So that is super exciting. So if anybody's like super intrigued about that, reach out to Angela. I'm sure she'll take more investment money because there are certain things that are worth investing in right now. AI is one, like new banking systems, another, like there's just a lot of stuff too.
It's very hot. So yeah, I look at like Coho and there's one other Stack. Coho and Stack just did a round in Canada. There's 5 other neobanks other than ours, and their rounds were like closer to the 75 million and 35 million. So and that's USD. Our 3 million Canadian is a pretty nice entry level for somebody that wants to come in. So it's kind of a neat way to look at like how and where these companies have gone and what we can do. So yeah, definitely. Anybody, please reach on out. We're here. We're doing our seed round, so we're excited.
Time to diversify your investment account.
Exactly. There you go.
All right, let's move on. Now, we mentioned that Angela, because she's a cyclist and she loves goals, obviously, like you need something else to do while you're doing all this business stuff. Okay, so how did you decide to go for a UCI 1Hr world record? And what exactly, okay, let me say, okay, first, how did you decide to do that? Like,
And then we'll just ask, like, what are you doing on a daily basis to get there? And like, what's the record that you have to, is this on the track, by the way?
Yes. Yeah. On the track.
Oh, okay. So I've seen these done before. So what's the woman's track record that you have to beat?
So the women's track record was done in 2018. It's held by an incredible woman. Her name is Vittoria Busi out of Italy. And she recorded a 48.007 kilometers in an hour record speed. And then previous to her was Evie Stevens, former Team USA Olympic cyclist. And she came in at 48.002.
Oh.
I know. And I still believe after now learning all of the dynamics and learning how altitude plays and the day and the weather and the gear you wear. Evelyn Stevens did her world record in Colorado. Yeah, naked, shaved and naked. But Evelyn Stevens did hers actually in Colorado. You get a lot of viewership. Trust me, if I did it naked, I'm pretty sure we would hit. Maybe I'll have to do that for fun. Clear nude skin suit. I don't know. Anybody out there? I'm willing to do it. Be the first female. I will wear a clear rubber skin suit. Not that it would be super attractive, but if it makes me fast, I'm all for it. But yeah, so Evie did hers in Colorado. There's two amazing, obviously, Team USA trains in Colorado elevation. That's why they do so well, obviously, in their speed. But Aguascalientes, Mexico, is known as the fastest world's indoor cycling track. It's just at the sweet spot, perfect elevation, just above 1,400 meters. The weather's great. It's nice and warm. The air density is low. So there's kind of like all these kind of like check mark points that make it just like the Salt Lake Flats, right? Like it just makes it like this perfect environment to get world records. And so I always kind of say, like, I look back like at how close Evelyn Stevens and Vittoria Busi's distance were in the hour. And if Evie went to Aguascalientes, I still feel that Evelyn actually would have had and still would hold the world record. I think she would have gotten over 48.007 based on her CDA as well as her like her power to body weight ratio, right? So how I got into this, well, I remember quite distinctly because Steve Haining, who is the producer behind the docudrama series that is in the making in and around the world record, he filmed me when I was 36 years old, training on the trainer. And the whole thing at that stage was, in the course of 4 years, I wanted to recondition my body. And you know what it's like coming from being an endurance athlete. Like at that stage, I'd been doing some Ironmans, 70.3s. I was doing long distance riding after cycling across Canada. So I wanted to see if at 36 over 4 years, I could become more a power engine, go back to kind of the rowing discipline that I had, where I could do 60-minute ergs and 2,000 meter efforts and build muscle. And that it became kind of like just a time tester. Like at that stage, I thought, let's just make it an age group record attempt. I'll do it in Canada. And honestly, like at the age of kind of 39, 40, I remember sitting down with my still head coach, kind of strength and conditioning coach at the Peak National Training Center here in Ottawa, as well as my coach down in San Diego on the San Diego Velodrome track, John Howard and John Walsh. We kind of were looking at my times and all that. And the guys kind of said, you know what, like, we think you should go after the world record, like the elite women's world record. If we had a little bit more time, we could do this. So it's kind of funny. I look back now, and at that stage I was like, yeah, like, let's do it. Awesome. And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah, that sounds like a fabulous.
I was like, you guys aren't sweating and trying to get a bank off or a Neobank off the ground, but I'll do it. Like, why not? We're already here. I'm crazy as it is. So I honestly, Sylvie, like, I think, yeah, like, it's definitely, you know, it takes a lot. And you start to realize, obviously, when you train as a pro athlete, you have to, I live with my partner. So there's a lot of sacrifices that have come into play, both with launching a company and trying to break a record. So I owe, and my family, and my friends, like everybody, you know, it's kind of like, nah, I can't go out and have a late night here or there. You kind of have to, and it does, you suffer if you do, especially as you get older. So I just think, yeah, it's kind of cool. Yeah, right. Like, so I don't know, it's been a fun experiment. I looked at it as, taking all the lessons learned when younger and being at a high level of performance, the kind of things I should have done then that I'm now doing, considering nutrition, mental health, and physical well-being. We all know that there's only a certain level you can take your body physically to, but there's this incredible power behind the mind and what nutrition can do. And I think what happens as we age is that finesse of respecting all the areas that you have to look at. And that's what I think is the coolest part is, and I definitely don't play off on being the smartest with my nutrition at all points in times, because we're all human, but I think the neatest part here is learning that system again and what's the importance. So the record was supposed to be done last year. But when the pandemic hit, it obviously changed the course for a lot of athletes. And it was a really hard decision, because obviously I'm not getting any younger, and with knowing the launch of the Neobank, it is a lot of work and time. And there's been limitations on access to the velodrome in Milton, which is where I was back and forth when I could be, just to get the track. But luckily enough, like for the 1 hour record, you're just really following a black line on a flat surface. So I can get a lot of the work I need done on a trainer, which is really lonely. I kind of joke to people, like, I'm not the last, me, I'm a social butterfly. So when people ask me, oh, do you want to go out and do like 100K today or 200K ride? And we're going out to past like Wakefield, and I can't really go out and do those. There's no purpose. Like my engine, I don't want it to get conditioned to the long distance stuff. So it's been a lonelier experience than I thought. And it's kind of funny to be like, when it's 28 degrees, I take my trainer and I put it on our back patio. So at least I'm outside, but I'm still having to do trainer workouts, because technically I'd be on a track, right? So it's kind of like my efforts have to be there. And it's really important now that I'm in getting into that last chapter of training for the September date that's set. It's more important now than ever to really get dialed in. So I was kind of joke. I think my last VO2 was probably my worst one. And that was a real hard setback. I've had improvement, increase. And I think COVID and all of the work and some sleepless, like 4-hour nights for almost a month of dealing on some stuff. When I went in to do my last VO2 test, I was pretty exhausted going in, and we had some positives that came out of it. But when we sat down and looked at where I was sitting, it was like, oh man, like we have to pull you back a little bit and just get you back in the zone. So I'm bored out of my mind. I think you'd appreciate it. Like, I think my zone 1 went back like almost like 30 or 40 watts. So like and he wants me to do a lot more in my zone 1s just to bump that level. So I'm like, shoot me now. Like, it's just like, I'm sitting there, like, I'm like, anybody want to talk? I'm like, I'm bored, but I'm pedaling and this is super easy. So I'm like, oh my God. But the zone 3s are really easy. What's that?
That's why I need to listen to my podcast episodes.
Exactly. I can actually listen and focus. It's like, but yeah, anyways, it's been an awesome experience. I'm very excited. I think, regardless now of, it's really hard with a pandemic. I won't lie. Like I hats off to any of the athletes that are out there training for the Olympics, and now hearing again from the Olympic committee that they might not go on this year, and they're out there trying to think, well, am I qualifying for Tokyo? Am I not? There still is a chance that I might not. What's that?
Is that announcement new? Because I was talking to Kelsey Mitchell, and she said Tokyo was going on, but nobody else could enter besides people who live in Tokyo. That's it.
Yeah.
Just athletes and residents.
So what was spoken this week through the government chapters over in Tokyo, there was like a call, because the cases are rising internationally, and that includes where athletes coming in would be coming from. So like India, et cetera, like in France. There is worry that even having people come in, will this create a resurgence, and will we have a lot of sick athletes that we're going to have to take care of? Like, they are concerned about that with being 99, I guess like under 99 days now, because this was 2 days ago, so 97 days away. And that definitely has raised some concern and conversation for obviously all the different governing bodies. So I think, yeah, like any mention of, is it gonna not happen, is a worry. And if with them still saying like, we're concerned for the athlete safety, and yeah, imagine if they did invite all the athletes in, and within the first 2 weeks of the games, you've got 50% of them with COVID, and now you've got a whole wing over in Tokyo full of sick athletes, like, which would just be, it'd be horrifying. And then what do you do, right? Like, everybody's got to get on a plane to get back home. They're not from the same country. So I think there's, obviously we've seen that closed loop sports has worked, for the NBA and NHL, although mind you, like the Vancouver Canucks just had a huge outbreak with the variant, there. But so, yeah, I just think it's, what's that?
They were being in Vancouver. That's, but I would imagine that any Olympic athlete who's training right now is not out in the public.
Pretty much, like, that's, yeah, like they're already in their bubble, right? And I think that's where it's hard. Like Leah, like I'm talking to some of the gals that are on the team, like Ariane, my partner, and I launched a virtual cycle mission, which has gone really well. I'll share some details on that because we've been supporting Can Fund. And Ariane Bonham, who's local, she's our first funded athlete. She got the $6,000 check from Can Fund, and it's neat kind of talking to her. And I think, yeah, like they're in the bubble, but they're still going into grocery stores. They're still having to go and do certain things. So you never know, right? Like, it's obviously, you kind of keep your contact points, which Nick and I are doing the same thing. Like, I think it's, for us, we stay within our close bubbles. And if we're meeting with anybody, it's outside in our backyard and we're appropriately distanced to have the conversation, because you just have to do your part that way. But it's, I guess where Tokyo's coming from is like, yeah, the hundreds of athletes that would be coming in, and just understanding and respecting what that means. So, but hopefully they have it all set up. Like, it would be a shame to not see it go through. I think everybody's out there training really hard, and they got postponed last year. And I know how hard it is to try to train now, like, and try to be motivated for, please don't change the date. Like in my case, we've called it where we've got a plan A and there's a plan B should the physical event not actually get to take place in Aguascalientes. So the ability to possibly do it on Milton, not that it would be a world record time because it's not a fast track, but at least to do it and be there for the cause. Like, now that there's the perfect or podium docudrama series, and that there's going to be funding going back to girls and women's sport, that's the real reason for me. So I think it's raising the awareness about girls and women's sports and what we can do to elevate that conversation more. So I'll do my best no matter where I get to do the attempt. Obviously, I have a plan A, which I hope really does go through. But if there's not, there's the plan B. So it will happen. Yeah.
You're like, I just need to do this. I don't care where.
I just need to do it. It's going to happen. This is the story. And you know what? And I think people will totally respect whether I get to do it in Aguascalientes or I get to do it on an esports trainer, UCI Swift, be the first female to do an esports UCI, which would be boring as heck. But, again, yeah.
You tell me with the whip. Come on, Angela.
Put the cowbells and the flappers.
Come on.
Oh man. So, well, yeah, exactly. So hopefully, like, we see, like, I'm supposed to go down to Los Angeles and train on the Los Angeles track June, July, and August, and be with my actual coaches, and from there fly down. And the US is obviously opening up a lot faster than we are. They're getting vaccines deployed. So there is the opportunity or the possibility, because of being asked as a pro athlete to get down there. I might, if I haven't gotten my first shot here, hopefully I'll have had at least my first shot. I could get the second one when I'm down there, and then go and train. So kind of that's the mapped out plan. And it's also good for business because a lot of the merchants and the clients are down there. So kind of staying safe and staying strong, and at the same point in time working on all of the great stuff. Like, I think the film, Steve's coming back to town next week, so we're starting to film the trailer. So that's really cool.
Okay, so let's finish it up and talk about the whole video, the film wrapped around that's going to be on Amazon, and the purpose, like,
you got it.
Breaking barriers with women's sport, because that is really becoming a hot topic. I don't know if you've read Catherine Berton's book, Stand.
No. Okay, I'm writing that one down.
Just Google Stand on Amazon, Catherine Burton, and it talks all about, like, I'm just getting into it. Like, you will get into it because you're a female athlete in sport of cycling. Like, you'll be able to relate so much to her. She talks way back into, 2005, her whole career in women's pro cycling, and she's an activist for women, for being paid properly for.
Yeah, and I know who Catherine is, so that's I definitely will take a look at that. And that's that's perfect. And I think that's like thinking now,
like myself, like the Women's Collective, like her, like Catherine in the States, that are all doing little things. The thing is that we need to like bring us all together and really, push. Anyway,
the message, right? And I think it's even other women. So that's a whole, like, having your involvement and having Catherine's and reaching out, like, Clara Hughes. I definitely have her on the list to talk to. And I know there's so many more, like the teams that are out there right now, the women that are actually living it day by day, having their right now experience stories. So that's the overall goal. Like, when Steve Haining approached me, he's the owner of Creative. He's won some incredible awards. He's a young producer. He's Canadian. He's got a few docudramas right now on Amazon Prime. They approached him because of his work and said, look, if there's any other independent films, because we're looking for good content, you do a good job, you're getting lots of followers. What would you do next? So Steve phoned me and said, he's been a friend like you, like for, past a decade, and just knowing about what I've been working on. And he said, I really think what you built up and what your purpose is has a story, and there's other stories that could be a part of it. What are your thoughts? So that's where, we started during the pandemic to have these kind of conversations and created the synopsis of bringing women particularly together and living off of their experiences, is creating this storyboard that follows a young girl, from day one to kind of like finishing, going after breaking a world record. So it's looking at my life, but it's really wanting the viewer to kind of put themselves in that person's shoe to say, wow, like, this is the path, and then filling in all these other stories. So, we're talking to some incredible athletes and organizers, and it's not just cycling. It's like women that are part of the WNBA, to people that are part of the WNHL, to women that are behind, like cause, right? Like being a part of the organizations to get more women into sport and coaching. Talking on some of those heavy subjects. So the synopsis we presented to Amazon Prime for their approval to move forward was really kind of touching each episode. There's 6 that we've developed in the synopsis, and it's really looking at all these kind of topics that could branch off into their own seasons, to be honest. So the goal is to grow this, and from that, receive the funding from the viewership from Amazon Prime, and then create this fund to give back to girls and women. But some of the subject matters that we're looking for, and the right athlete and story will definitely be fitting in there. It's not about me. Touches on, coming from poverty or coming from the Bronx, kind of, right? Like, lots of athletes come from nothing and they prevail. Those stories of resilience and perseverance, and hitting those chords. The sexual misconduct in sport, like we've had the Team Canada Synchro this last year, USA Gymnastics, like, needless to say. So touching on those kind of concepts of what women have had to go through with body shaming and just that misconduct there, talking about nutrition and high performance sport, and how we go differ. Like, there's I'm really hopeful. There's an incredible athlete I just got introduced to, getting a book written on her, and she's the first Bahamian Olympic, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and her story is like, it actually deserves to be a movie. Like, her name's Pauline David Tomlinson, and honestly, like, I just bawl every single time I listen to her story. She's
athlete?
She was athletics, and she's actually on the World Athletics Committee. And she's just remarkable. Like, she had, like, her story is like, she had this side stride. Like, she was on the 4x4 and the 100, and
Right.
little bohemian girl, didn't come from much, and she just like had the right coach, the right time, see this young girl have potential, and she went on to a full scholarship ride in the US back in the 70s and 80s, or 80s, and full on, I think it was in Alabama that she went, like, talk about racism and being torn down. And she was the only Black Bohemian woman on the Bohemian athletics team. They didn't even have any other women. And to be a female at that stage that's athletic, right? Like, not lanky and like voluptuous, like to go in and be squatting and powerlifting. Like, she was strong. Like, oh, she's so awesome. Like, I just, like, her story is, and it passes. Like, Claire's got a story, Silken's got a story. We all have stories. And I think that's what the most part is we're all trying, as you said, to create and pave this way now for more girls. And that's the idea behind Perfect, or podium, breaking records and barriers for girls and women in sport, is really a collection of wanting to find others that want to share their story and get that message out there and make a difference. Like, it's really about, like, what I love, what you just shared about this Women's Canadian Cycling Collection or Collective is how do we create a community, which is what we are, and start to work together. And I think that's how we're going to beat the odds. And heck, I always love saying it, women were a very powerful force. It's just us getting to know each other and working together. And I think now that we have the opportunity, it's you got to grab it by the horns and do it. So that's my purpose. Like, I think I've got a real good reason to get out there and try to break a world record, but there's even something to follow suit that I think is going to have a really powerful mission for the rest of my life. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. And just
Cool.
leads right into, what you're doing, the Athletica and all the,
It's me.
you're doing it for a reason. but there's a need for it. And I love what you're doing, Angela, and it's really bringing a lot of purpose. And if I can do anything, like with my podcast, to help, as my viewership grows, and I'm going for number 1, by the way.
Nice. Love it.
So, yeah, and just bringing on amazing women like yourself, amazing men too, in the world of cycling. That's what it's all about. It's just all things cycling, because there's stories to be had everywhere, and people we need to know about. A lot of the episodes have different, meanings behind them, whether it's, cycling for suicide, or, having eating disorders as a high level athlete, but, and they all come together with a great story at the end. But
awesome.
Let's bring this to an end, because we could chat a lot.
It's been a long time. Exactly. We got lots that we could share.
Catch up. But I just want to thank you so much. So I'm going to put this out there. After you've done your world record, we need to have you back on here.
Absolutely. I'm totally for that. And it will be live streamed. So if you want to throw like a live stream party, and we'll get some stuff going, obviously that will all be taking place. So there you go. You can have a virtual or a big party.
Yeah. Cause I'll get my club involved too. Cause
absolutely.
we have over 100 women on bikes who are 40 and above.
I love it. Love it.
That would really probably be interested in what you're doing. So
super cool.
But let's make sure that I'm on that email list. All right. Well, thanks. Thanks, Angela. Thank you to our listeners.
Sylvie.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'd love to know what your biggest takeaway was, or maybe multiple takeaways from Angela. And also, let's not forget to put on those notifications so you don't miss great episodes like this. Because like I said, I have Ariana Bonham on. I'm going to be interviewing her.
Yeah, later. Awesome. Well, she's a local gal, so that's perfect. Say hi to her.
I will. And so yeah, so make sure you have your notifications on because you don't want to miss these episodes. And also, Angela and I would just absolutely love 5 stars and an amazing review. So I think you have to go to Apple for that.
Probably.
Really sure. But I think Apple's where you put up the review. So we would love, Angela and I would love a 5-star and a review. And so you better stay tuned to Angela on all her social media platforms to stay tuned and look all those pictures of her training hard.
Yeah. Follow my crazy stories. I can post, you have to share all of your upcoming shows. So what I can do is do a shout out so I can remind people that are following me to listen to you because I think that what you're doing is fantastic. So
I'll put up, I have, I'll send you just a picture. But with that, everybody, have an amazing day. And we can't wait to see you on the next podcast coming out.